Welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're going deep into Kelee Meditation.
Oh, yeah.
It's all about the mind and freedom.
And the present moments.
Right. We got this really cool audio from Ron W Rathbun.
Oh, yeah. One of his teaching sessions. Really gets to the heart of things.
Absolutely. And, I think a lot of people struggle with quieting their minds, right? Like just finding that stillness.
You bet.
Yeah.
Especially these days, right?
Yeah.
The challenge for sure.
Yeah. Rathbun, he really emphasizes this, right? He talks about how so many of us approach meditation with just this intellectual understanding.
Yeah.
We read all the books, we learn the steps, but we're not really feeling it.
Right. And that's a key point he makes, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, you can't just think your way to enlightenment.
Exactly.
You've got to feel it. You've got to experience it.
So true. He talks about letting go of comparisons,
Well,
letting go of all expectations.
And just being present with the experience.
Yes.
It's like he's saying, forget all the shoulds and just be here now.
Yeah. It makes me think of that idea of the monkey mind, that constant chatter that keeps us from truly connecting with the present.
Oh, yeah, the monkey mind. It's a real struggle. We sit down to meditate, hoping for some peace and quiet, and suddenly our minds are just flooded with thoughts.
Oh, yeah, I know. About grocery lists and work deadlines and like that awkward conversation you had earlier.
Exactly. All that stuff comes rushing in.
And Rathbun seems to suggest that the key to overcoming this mental chatter is to stop trying to think our way through meditation.
And just allow ourselves to simply be.
Right. Now, how do we do that? That's the question. He connects this idea of quieting the mind to the concepts of ego, intellect, and consciousness.
Okay, yeah. He makes this point that the ego and the intellect can't operate without the mind. They're fueled by consciousness.
Okay. So it's like they're tools we can use, but they're not the whole toolbox, right?
Yeah, exactly. He's saying that while the ego and intellect are part of us, they're not the entirety of our consciousness.
Okay. So getting caught up in them, he says, can make us less conscious.
Less present.
Yeah. It's like we're so busy thinking and analyzing, we miss out on what's happening right here, right now.
Absolutely. It's like mistaking the map for the territory.
The map for the territory, yeah.
The ego and intellect, they can be useful tools, but they can also become traps if we let them run the show.
So how do we avoid falling into that trap? How do we become more aware of when the ego and intellect are kind of running the show?
Well, I think that's where Rathbun's emphasis on feeling the practice comes in.
Yeah.
It's not enough to just understand meditation intellectually.
Yeah, so we need to connect with our inner experience.
Right. Our emotions, our sensations, not just analyze them in our heads, but really feel them.
Okay. And he goes on to talk about these compartments from our past. This was interesting to me.
Oh, yeah.
He's basically saying that our past experiences, especially ones we haven't fully processed, they become like these mental compartments.
Right. And they end up shaping our perceptions and beliefs, even if we're not aware of it.
Like each compartment is holding some experience or belief that we haven't really dealt with. Could be a past trauma or some limiting belief from childhood, or even like a positive experience that we're holding on to too tightly.
Right. Exactly. And those compartments, they act as filters.
Filters.
They
yeah.
color how we see the world and ourselves.
So even if we're not, consciously aware of these compartments, they're still influencing us.
Big time.
In the present. It's like they have this hidden power over our thoughts and our feelings and even our behavior.
And they can manifest in all sorts of ways. Relationship patterns, self-sabotaging behaviors, even physical symptoms.
Wow. That's pretty profound. So if we're carrying around these compartments from our past, how might they be affecting our present experience? I mean, what do you think?
Well, I think we all have those compartments, whether we realize it or not.
Yeah.
And those compartments, they can hold us back in so many ways. They prevent us from experiencing true freedom, true joy.
So Rathbun's message is about breaking free from those compartments, from those patterns.
Exactly. It's about finding true freedom.
Okay.
In the present moment. Not dwelling in the past, not trying to control the future.
And that's where the practice of Kelee meditation comes in.
Right. It's a path to releasing those compartments and finding that freedom.
Okay. But how exactly does it work? Can we apply some of Rathbun's teachings?
I mean, he really emphasizes that importance of feeling rather than just thinking. Letting go of control. Being present in the moment. These are all principles we can apply.
In our everyday lives.
Exactly. Not just during meditation.
So how do we do that? How do we actually feel rather than just think?
Well, think about how often we get stuck in our heads, right? Overthinking everything, analyzing, judging, trying to make sense of it all. What if we just allowed ourselves to simply feel without judgment?
Yeah.
Without trying to label them or explain them away.
Just be with them.
Exactly. Create space for those feelings to exist.
I like that.
And it's a practice. You can do it in everyday life. Next time you feel a strong emotion coming up, try not to resist it. Don't try to push it away. Just observe it. Notice the sensations that come up, but don't engage with them.
Okay. It's hard though, right?
It's practice.
Yeah. But there's something freeing about it too, isn't there?
Absolutely. It's about cultivating that spaciousness within, a sense of peace that doesn't depend on external circumstances.
I love that. Finding that inner stillness amidst all the chaos.
Yeah.
Now, what about this letting go of control thing? How can we apply that to our daily lives?
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
Especially in a world that's, all about productivity and achievement.
Right. Always got to be in control, right? Strive for success,
Yeah.
get things done. But Rathbun's saying this pursuit of control, it can actually be a source of suffering.
For sure. It creates so much resistance. Like we're constantly pushing against the flow of life. What if we just accepted things as they are without needing to change them or fix them?
Yeah. That's a radical shift in perspective.
It is.
But wouldn't that make us passive?
Not necessarily. It's not about giving up on your goals or your ambitions. It's more about approaching life with a more open mind, more flexible. You can still take action, but you do it from a place of acceptance.
Rather than resistance.
Exactly.
Okay. So finding that balance.
Right. And what's interesting is that Rathbun actually connects this clinging to control to the concept of karma.
Right. He says that karma arises when we try to control others.
For our own benefit.
For our own benefit. Yeah. And that's definitely something we need to unpack a bit more.
Absolutely.
We were talking about how this Kelee meditation, it can help us find freedom in the present moment.
Right, right.
But what does that actually look like in practice? What are we talking about here?
It seems like Kelee meditation, they can really help us, disengage from that constant stream of thoughts that tend to pull us away from the now. And as we cultivate that present moment awareness, it creates space for deeper insights and a sense of inner peace. And it can also help us break free from those compartments we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, the compartments. I think a lot of people struggle with that, right? Feeling like so caught up in their head.
Absolutely.
Constantly worrying about the future, dwelling on the past, and they miss out on the beauty of the present moment.
It's so true. And Rathbun seems to be suggesting that constant mental chatter, that's actually what keeps us trapped in those cycles of suffering.
Oh, okay.
So Kelee meditation then offers a way to kind of break free from those patterns.
Yeah.
And experience a more authentic way of being, more joyful.
Okay, yeah. But since we don't have those step-by-step instructions for Kelee meditation, is there anything we can take away from this?
Oh, sure, yeah.
From what Rathbun says in the excerpt?
I mean, throughout the excerpt, he emphasizes this importance of feeling rather than just thinking.
Yeah.
Letting go of control and simply being present. And those are all things you can apply in various aspects of your life.
Yeah. Okay, so how do we do that? Can you give us some examples?
Sure. Let's take the idea of feeling rather than thinking. Think about how often you get stuck in your head, overthinking everything. What if instead you just allowed yourself to feel without judgment?
Okay, so just be present with whatever you're feeling.
Exactly. And it can be a really powerful practice, in everyday life.
Yeah.
Next time you feel a strong emotion coming up, don't resist it. Don't push it away. Just try to observe it, the thoughts that arise, but don't engage with them.
Yeah.
It can be a challenge, but the more you practice it, the easier it becomes.
Right. You kind of create that space.
Yeah, exactly. Cultivate that spaciousness within yourself, a sense of peace that isn't, dependent on what's happening around you.
Okay, yeah. And, that reminds me of something else Rathbun said about letting go of control. How can we apply that to our daily lives?
That's a good question. And it's a tough one, right?
Yeah.
Especially in a culture that values productivity, achievement, always got to be in control, Strive for success, get things done.
Yeah, yeah. It's like we're programmed for that almost.
Right. But what Rathbun is saying is that this constant pursuit of control, that can be the source of a lot of suffering.
Oh, interesting. So it's not that having goals or ambitions is bad. It's more about how we approach them.
Precisely. It's about shifting our focus from controlling the outcome to being present with the process.
Okay. So recognizing that we don't have to have all the answers.
Right.
That we can kind of trust in the unfolding of life.
Exactly.
But that that can be scary, right? Letting go of control, because we like to feel like we're in charge.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It can be scary. But think about it. When we try to control everything, we create resistance, right?
Yeah.
It's like we're constantly swimming upstream, fighting the current. So instead of trying to force things to go our way, what if we just practice accepting things as they are
Okay.
without needing to change them or fix them?
That sounds challenging, but also very, very liberating.
It is. It is. And it
Hmm.
doesn't mean you become passive or give up on your goals. It just means you approach life with a more open mind. You
Yeah.
can still take action, but you do it from a place of acceptance rather than resistance.
Okay. So finding that balance.
Exactly. And what's interesting here is that Rathbun, he actually connects this clinging to control to the concept of karma.
Oh, right. He says that karma arises when we try to control others for our own benefit.
Exactly.
And that's something we need to explore a little bit more.
For sure.
So we've been talking about Kelee meditation.
Yeah. A lot to unpack there.
Right. Quieting the mind, letting go of control, the ego,
The compartments from our past.
karma. I mean, we've covered a lot of ground.
We have. And you might be wondering, how do I actually apply all this to my life? It can seem a little overwhelming.
Yeah, it's one thing to understand these ideas intellectually,
Right.
but how do we actually put them into action?
I think Rathbun gives us some clues. Remember, he emphasizes the importance of feeling the practice rather than just understanding it in our heads.
Yeah, so going beyond just knowing about meditation.
Exactly. And actually experiencing it.
Okay, so how do we do that? Can you give us some concrete steps our listeners can take to bring more presence into their lives?
Well, it can be surprisingly simple. Take a few moments throughout your day to just be.
Okay.
Pay attention to your surroundings, the sights, the sounds, the smells. Engage your senses.
It sounds so simple. But in our busy world, it's easy to forget to do that.
Absolutely. It takes practice. But the more you do it, the easier it becomes. Think of it like training a muscle. The more you exercise it, the stronger it gets.
Okay. I like that analogy, the mind muscle. So what are the benefits of strengthening this muscle?
Well, there are many. Increased focus, reduced stress,
Mm.
better emotional regulation,
Mm.
even improved relationships. But maybe most importantly, a deeper sense of peace and contentment.
Okay. Yeah.
When you're fully present, you're not caught up in the drama of your thoughts so much. You're just here now, experiencing life as it is.
And that kind of brings us back to what Rathbun said about those compartments. If we can release some of those compartments by being present, we can create more freedom in our lives.
Exactly. Which leads to a thought-provoking question for our listeners. If you could release just one compartment from your past, which would be? What past experience or belief is holding you back?
That is a powerful question.
Yeah. And it really gets to the heart of Rathbun's message, self-discovery. It's not just about learning a technique.
Yeah.
It's about using that technique as a tool to explore your inner world.
Yeah, to understand yourself more deeply.
And ultimately to free yourself from the limitations of the past.
So to our listeners, we encourage you to explore this idea of being present and pay attention to what shifts within you.
What new possibilities emerge,
The answers are within you.
waiting to be discovered.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Until next time.
Be present, be curious, and be kind to yourselves.